The story begins with a journalist interviewing a family whose invention in the medical field has saved thousands of lives. Although reliving the memories of their daughter is painful for them, they decide to tell the story of their lives. The film then goes back to the past. Tsuboi is an engineer who runs a manufacturing workshop in Japan. He has just returned from a business trip to Africa, bringing back equipment he plans to produce here in order to pay off his debts. His wife, Yoko, supports his ideas and encourages him. Everything changes when Tsuboi and Yoko take their daughter Yoshimi to the hospital for a routine checkup. The doctor tells them that one of Yoshimi's heart valves is not functioning properly and that her body is not receiving enough blood. This has prevented her from developing normally. There is no cure, and the success rate of surgery is only 1%. The doctor adds that if she is carefully looked after, Yoshimi might live another 10 years. Tsuboi cannot accept this reality. He takes Yoshimi's medical file to the best hospitals in Japan, but no surgeon is willing to operate with such a low chance of success. He works harder, saves money, and searches for a solution until Yoko suggests an idea: an artificial heart. In Japan, artificial heart development is still only at the research stage, but Yoko proposes that the money they had saved for surgery be used to support artificial heart research instead. The next day, Tsuboi goes to the largest university in Japan. Professor Ishiguro, the head of artificial heart research, tells him that the best model ever made was in US and lasted only 145 days. Even reaching that stage would take Japan decades. Tsuboi leaves the university in despair, but when he returns home and sees that Yoshimi becomes tired easily and cannot live like her sisters because of her illness, he makes a firm decision. He will build the artificial heart himself. This decision brings hope back into the home. From the next day, Tsuboi persistently follows Professor Ishiguro and insists on joining his team. He is willing to cover any costs necessary. At first, the professor refuses, but when he realizes his team desperately needs an engineer, he finally agrees. Tsuboi joins the team. The team works on developing a plastic tube for the artificial heart, but the problem is that blood clots inside it, creating a deadly risk. To better understand medicine, Tsuboi pretends to be a student and attends several medical classes at the university. After one class, a student agrees to answer his questions. When Tsuboi asks him about artificial hearts, the student says such a thing might be possible in 10 years. That same night, Tsuboi works in his workshop until morning on the tube. The next day, he shows the team a tube in which blood does not clot. At that moment, a young doctor on the team points out another major problem. The pump casing is not strong enough, and the university refuses to allocate more funding to buy a new machine. Without hesitation, Tsuboi buys a new machine with his own money and installs it in his workshop. Weeks pass before the first model is completed. When Tsuboi finally presents the result to the team, even Professor Ishiguro is astonished by what he sees. The professor wants to request more funding from the university to purchase additional equipment for continued research, but when Tsuboi volunteers to pay the costs himself, both of them realize that the required amount is far beyond Tsuboi's means. Time is passing, and Yoshimi does not have much time left. Tsuboi approaches several investors, but none of them are willing to invest in a project they believe will not be profitable. Years pass, and Yoshimi reaches high school. Tsuboi finally succeeds in completing the body of the artificial heart, but at that moment news arrives that the man in US who had been living with an artificial heart has died after 170 days. His pain had become so severe that he himself pressed the switch to turn the heart off. This news leads Professor Ishiguro to shut down the artificial heart project. Tsuboi becomes furious because everyone had known from the beginning that this path would be full of challenges. Nevertheless, the professor coldly orders him to leave the university. Tsuboi and Yoko fall into despair. Almost all of their money has been spent. The next day, Tsuboi goes back to the professor's office and begs him to reconsider. But at that moment, Tomioka enters the office to tell Tsuboi that Yoko has called and is extremely anxious. Tsuboi realizes that Yoshimi's condition has worsened again and that he must get to the hospital immediately. Tsuboi rushes to the hospital and goes straight to Yoshimi's room. Fortunately, her condition still seems stable, but the doctor has no good news. He tells them that Yoshimi's vital organs are beginning to fail, and that even if a miracle were to happen and an artificial heart were built immediately, It would already be too late to save her. When they leave the doctor's office, Yoshimi's younger sister is in tears. The next day, Tsuboi goes to the university and thanks all the doctors for their efforts. Then he returns to his workshop and begins tearing it apart, smashing the machines. Later, as he sits there alone, Yoshimi comes to him and asks him to save other children instead of her. She knows her own heart can no longer be cured, but the work her father has done so far can save the lives of many others. This is Yoshimi's wish. Her words set Tsuboi in motion once again. Exhausted and discouraged yet determined, he decides to return to work and complete the path he has begun. At the same time, Yoshimi spends time with her mother and sisters, visiting places she has always loved and being together more than ever. Tsuboi discovers that the balloon pumps inside the heart do not function properly in Japanese bodies, and no one knows exactly why. Yoko is upset that Tsuboi spends so much time working and so little time with Yoshimi, but he tells her that this is exactly what Yoshimi herself asked him to do. Tsuboi returns to Professor Ishiguro and suggests that they work together on developing the balloon, but the professor reminds him that a balloon cannot save his daughter and that there is no real need for Japan to manufacture it in the first place. Tsuboi does not give up. He begins working on his own, using the same machines he had previously purchased for building the heart, but the balloons turn out to be too thin and fragile. Yoko comes to the workshop and says she wants to introduce a new member. Tsuboi is startled when he sees Yoshimi. Yoshimi has decided to work there so they can spend more time together. Tsuboi shows Yoko the tube connected to the balloon, but the problem is that it does not bend enough. Yoko suggests using a different material instead of metal. Tsuboi quickly makes a non-metallic model, and when Tomioka sees it, he is certain that this version is better than any balloon currently on the market. That night, while working, they finally manage to remove the balloon from the mold intact. For the first time, they have a perfect balloon in front of them. They spend the entire night testing it, but by morning, the balloon has developed a hole. Tsuboi realizes that the problem lies in the stage of separating the balloon from the mold, and that this process must be done in an isolated environment. He gets back to work and spends the entire night creating a new model. The next day, when Tsuboi falls asleep from exhaustion, Yoshimi enters the workshop and sees that her father has finally succeeded in making the balloon properly. When Tsuboi shows the new model to Tomioka, he congratulates him, saying it is the best balloon ever made. However, for it to be used nationwide in Japan, approval from medical institutions is required, which means Professor Ishiguro must endorse it. Tsuboi once again goes to the professor, but because Tsuboi has no formal medical training, the professor refuses to allow the balloon to be tested on a patient. He then takes the balloon to other universities as well, but none of them give a positive response. That same day, Yoshimi collapses at work and is taken back to the hospital. When Tsuboi sees her lying in bed, he blames himself for having spent his time elsewhere instead of being by his daughter's side. By reading Yoshimi's diary, he realizes that his daughter has always believed in her father's perseverance and still hopes that he will finish developing the balloon. These words give Tsuboi renewed motivation. He goes to Professor Ishiguro once more, but again faces rejection. This time, Tomioka volunteers to support him from a medical standpoint. A few days later, without Professor Ishiguro's knowledge, they decide to test the balloon on a patient. Tomioka takes full responsibility, and the operation is carried out successfully. After the surgery, the Japanese Minister of Health personally inspects the balloon and authorizes its use in hospitals nationwide. Shortly afterward, Professor Ishiguro invites Tsuboi to his office and apologizes for everything. He admits that this invention can save many lives. Orders begin to arrive from all over the country, and Tsuboi even manufactures balloons for children. Patients are saved one by one, and Yoshimi's dream becomes a reality before her death. In the end, the film returns to the present. The journalist thanks Tsuboi, revealing that she herself is one of the people whose life was saved by this balloon. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, you know what to do.